Most people spend their lives chasing respect in all the wrong ways. They believe that if they become endlessly helpful, endlessly agreeable, and endlessly available, others will naturally value them. They assume that sacrificing their own needs for the comfort of others will eventually be rewarded with admiration and loyalty. Yet human nature often works differently. While generosity can inspire gratitude and kindness can build relationships, neither automatically creates respect. Respect is rooted in something much deeper: the quiet conviction that you recognize your own worth and refuse to compromise it. People unconsciously observe how you treat yourself before deciding how they will treat you. Every conversation, every decision, and every boundary sends a silent message about what you believe you deserve. If you repeatedly excuse insults, ignore disrespect, or remain silent simply to avoid conflict, you unknowingly teach others that crossing your boundaries has no meaningful consequence. Over time, this pattern shapes their perception of you far more than your words ever could. One of the most important principles of emotional intelligence is understanding that self-respect cannot be borrowed from other people. It is cultivated from within through consistent choices. Every time you choose honesty over approval, discipline over comfort, and integrity over popularity, you strengthen the foundation of your identity. This inner stability becomes visible to others, even when you never speak about it. Truly confident people rarely feel the need to announce their value because their behavior communicates it naturally. They do not seek constant reassurance, nor do they depend on applause to feel secure. Their confidence is quiet, steady, and grounded in character rather than attention. Psychological research has long suggested that people are influenced by consistency. We instinctively trust individuals whose actions align with their principles. Someone who changes opinions merely to satisfy everyone appears uncertain, while someone who respectfully stands by their values projects reliability and strength. This does not mean becoming stubborn or refusing to learn from others. Instead, it means possessing a clear sense of identity that is not easily shaken by criticism or temporary social pressure. Such consistency creates predictability, and predictability builds trust. Trust, in turn, becomes one of the strongest foundations of genuine respect. Many people confuse being kind with being passive. Kindness is an act of strength because it is freely chosen. Passivity, however, often comes from fear, the fear of rejection, confrontation, or disappointing others. When kindness is motivated by fear, it loses its authenticity and gradually turns into people-pleasing. Ironically, people-pleasing often attracts the very disrespect it hopes to avoid. Those who constantly abandon their own needs teach others that their time, energy, and emotions are endlessly available. As a result, their generosity begins to be expected rather than appreciated. The healthiest relationships are not built on endless sacrifice, but on mutual respect, where both individuals recognize and honor each other's boundaries. History repeatedly shows that the individuals who command lasting respect are rarely those who sought popularity above all else. They are the people who developed competence, discipline, and emotional composure. Mastery of a valuable skill creates quiet confidence because it provides evidence of capability. A person who consistently improves themselves no longer depends entirely on external praise. Their confidence is supported by experience, preparation, and discipline rather than empty affirmation. This is why true authority often feels calm instead of loud. It speaks through actions more than words. Another overlooked truth is that emotional control is one of the strongest signals of personal strength. Losing control at every criticism or reacting impulsively to every disagreement communicates insecurity rather than confidence. Remaining calm does not mean accepting mistreatment. It means responding deliberately instead of emotionally. The ability to pause, think, and choose your response demonstrates maturity and self-mastery. People naturally place greater trust in those who can manage their emotions under pressure because emotional stability suggests inner confidence. It is equally important to understand that genuine respect can never be forced. Attempts to intimidate others through anger, threats, or dominance may produce temporary compliance, but they rarely create authentic admiration. Fear may silence people for a moment, yet respect grows from integrity, fairness, competence, and unwavering character. The strongest individuals rarely need to prove their strength because it is already reflected in the way they live. They know when to speak, when to remain silent, when to forgive, and when to walk away. Their dignity does not depend on winning every argument or receiving validation from every person they meet. Ultimately, the most powerful shift occurs when your sense of worth no longer depends on how others perceive you. The moment you stop negotiating your values for acceptance, your entire presence changes. You begin making decisions based on principle instead of approval. Your words become more meaningful because they are no longer spoken to impress anyone. Your silence carries weight because it comes from confidence rather than fear. Your boundaries become clear without becoming hostile. In time, people recognize that your kindness is a choice, not a weakness. Your humility is strength, not insecurity. And your respect for yourself naturally invites respect from others. The lesson is simple yet profound. People are far more likely to value someone who first values themselves. Lasting respect is never begged for, demanded, or manipulated into existence. It is quietly earned through self-respect, emotional discipline, unwavering integrity, and the courage to live according to your principles every single day. Human beings constantly observe one another, often without realizing it. Long before people judge your intelligence, talents, or achievements, they form impressions based on how you respond to pressure, disagreement, and disrespect. Every reaction becomes information. If someone insults you and you immediately become defensive, desperate to explain yourself, or emotionally overwhelmed, you unintentionally reveal that your emotional state can be controlled by external opinions. In contrast, when you respond with calmness, composure, and self-control, you communicate something far more powerful. Your sense of worth does not depend on another person's behavior. Psychologists have long recognized that emotional regulation is one of the strongest indicators of maturity and resilience. It is not the absence of emotion, but the ability to manage emotion without allowing it to dictate your actions. People naturally place greater trust and respect in individuals who remain composed under stress because emotional stability signals confidence, competence, and inner security. This is why leaders, negotiators, and highly respected individuals are often remembered not for dramatic reactions, but for their steady presence during difficult moments. Remaining calm should never be confused with becoming passive. Silence does not mean surrender, and patience does not mean weakness. There are moments when boundaries must be communicated clearly and directly. The difference lies in the motivation behind the response. A reaction driven by wounded pride often escalates conflict and clouds judgment. A response guided by self-respect, however, is measured, intentional, and focused on resolving the situation rather than proving superiority. Calmness allows you to choose your actions instead of becoming a prisoner of your impulses. Many people mistakenly believe they must immediately defend themselves against every criticism or disrespectful remark. Yet not every opinion deserves your attention, and not every challenge requires a response. Emotionally intelligent individuals understand that attention is valuable. They invest it wisely rather than giving it freely to every source of negativity. By refusing to react impulsively, they conserve their energy for what genuinely matters, preventing minor conflicts from becoming major distractions. This ability is strengthened through self-awareness. Before responding, ask yourself what emotion is driving your impulse. Is it anger, embarrassment, fear of rejection, or the desire to be understood? Recognizing these emotions creates a small but powerful pause between stimulus and response. Within that pause lies the freedom to act according to your values instead of your emotions. Over time, this habit builds remarkable inner strength because your behavior becomes rooted in principle rather than circumstance. Composure also influences how others perceive your boundaries. People are less likely to repeat disrespectful behavior when they encounter someone who addresses problems with confidence instead of emotional chaos. A calm statement such as, "I don't appreciate being spoken to that way," often carries far greater authority than raised voices or personal attacks. It communicates certainty without hostility and firmness without aggression. Such responses make it clear that dignity is non-negotiable while leaving room for respectful dialogue. History consistently shows that individuals remembered for their influence possessed exceptional emotional discipline. They understood that true strength is measured not by how loudly one reacts, but by how wisely one responds. Emotional control allows a person to think strategically, maintain credibility, and inspire confidence even in challenging circumstances. It reflects an internal foundation that cannot be easily shaken by external events. Ultimately, people respect those who demonstrate mastery over themselves before attempting to influence anyone else. The person who governs their own emotions possesses a quiet authority that requires no performance or intimidation. Their confidence comes from within, their decisions are guided by reason, and their character remains consistent regardless of the situation. When your peace is no longer controlled by the opinions or behavior of others, you develop a presence that naturally commands respect, not through fear, but through unwavering self-mastery. One of the most powerful qualities a person can develop is emotional self-control. In moments of disrespect, criticism, or provocation, most people instinctively react. They raise their voice, defend themselves impulsively, or allow anger to dictate their actions. While this may feel satisfying in the moment, psychology consistently shows that emotional impulsiveness often weakens a person's influence rather than strengthening it. The individual who cannot control their emotions often ends up being controlled by the behavior of others. True strength is revealed not by how fiercely someone reacts, but by how deliberately they choose their response. Human beings naturally pay attention to emotional stability. When someone remains calm under pressure, it signals confidence, discipline, and inner security. It communicates that their emotional state is not easily manipulated by outside circumstances. This calmness is not a sign of weakness or passivity. Instead, it reflects a deep understanding that not every challenge deserves an immediate reaction. Some situations require words, while others are best handled with patience, distance, or silence. The ability to distinguish between these moments is a mark of maturity. Many people confuse emotional control with suppressing feelings, but the two are entirely different. Suppression ignores emotions until they eventually erupt in unhealthy ways. Self-control, however, means acknowledging emotions without allowing them to become the decision maker. Anger, disappointment, and frustration are natural human experiences, but they should serve as information rather than instructions. The emotionally intelligent individual recognizes these feelings, reflects on their source, and responds according to principles instead of impulses. History repeatedly demonstrates that the most influential leaders, strategists, and thinkers possessed remarkable composure. They understood that people often reveal more about themselves when faced with silence than when confronted with aggression. An impulsive reaction can expose insecurity, while a measured response projects confidence. This is why composed individuals are often perceived as more capable even in difficult situations. Their steadiness reassures others and subtly establishes credibility. Neuroscience offers insight into why this matters. During moments of conflict, the brain's emotional centers become highly active, encouraging immediate action. However, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reasoning, judgment, and long-term thinking, functions best when emotions are regulated. By pausing before responding, a person gives rational thought the opportunity to guide behavior instead of instinct. That brief moment of reflection often prevents words or actions that could damage relationships, reputations, or opportunities. People who constantly seek the last word often underestimate the power of restraint. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is not surrender. It is evidence of discipline. Walking away from unnecessary conflict is not avoidance. It is the recognition that protecting your peace is often more valuable than winning an argument. Every unnecessary battle drains emotional energy that could be invested in personal growth, meaningful relationships, or purposeful work. Emotional control also strengthens personal boundaries. Individuals who remain calm are less likely to be manipulated through guilt, insults, or emotional pressure. They make decisions based on values rather than temporary feelings. As a result, others gradually realize that attempts to provoke, intimidate, or disrespect them are ineffective. This does not create fear through aggression, but earns respect through consistency and self-possession. Ultimately, the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. More often, it is the one who remains centered when others lose control, who speaks thoughtfully when others react impulsively, and who chooses wisdom over ego. Lasting influence is built on character, not emotional outbursts. When you master your own emotions, you remove one of the greatest sources of weakness from your life. You become difficult to manipulate, steady in adversity, and resilient in the face of challenge. In that quiet mastery lies a form of strength that commands respect without ever demanding it. Most people believe that confidence is built by speaking louder, proving themselves constantly, or dominating every room they enter. Yet one of the deepest principles of human psychology reveals something entirely different. People often place greater value on what appears calm, measured, and emotionally controlled than on what appears desperate for attention. Emotional discipline is one of the strongest signals of inner strength, because it demonstrates that your reactions are guided by principles rather than impulses. When someone can remain composed under pressure, they communicate that their identity cannot be easily shaken by criticism, provocation, or temporary setbacks. Every interaction becomes a silent test of emotional stability. Some people will disagree with you, question your decisions, or even underestimate your abilities. These moments are not merely challenges, they are opportunities to reveal the quality of your character. A person who immediately reacts with anger, defensiveness, or panic unintentionally hands control of their emotions to someone else. In contrast, the individual who pauses, reflects, and responds with clarity demonstrates a level of self-mastery that naturally earns respect. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. It is about recognizing them without allowing them to dictate every action. Human beings instinctively observe how others handle discomfort. Whether in the workplace, within friendships, or during moments of conflict, emotional consistency creates a sense of reliability. People feel more secure around individuals whose behavior is not constantly changing with every opinion they hear or every obstacle they face. That consistency becomes a quiet source of influence because it reflects an inner foundation rather than dependence on external circumstances. Patience also plays a powerful role in emotional discipline. Modern culture encourages immediate reactions, instant opinions, and quick judgments. However, wisdom often grows in the space between an event and your response. Taking time to think before speaking prevents unnecessary conflict, reduces emotional mistakes, and allows decisions to be guided by long-term values instead of temporary feelings. Many of life's greatest regrets are born from reactions made in moments of uncontrolled emotion, while many of its greatest successes come from deliberate and thoughtful action. Another important truth is that emotional control should never be confused with emotional coldness. Strong people are not those who never feel sadness, disappointment, or frustration. They are those who experience these emotions honestly while refusing to let them become destructive. They acknowledge their feelings, learn from them, and continue moving forward without allowing temporary emotional storms to define their identity. This balance between emotional awareness and emotional discipline is a hallmark of maturity. Resilience grows through repeated practice. Every difficult conversation, every misunderstanding, every criticism, and every setback becomes an opportunity to strengthen your emotional foundation. Instead of viewing challenges as personal attacks, you begin to see them as training grounds for greater self-awareness. Over time, you realize that true confidence is not built by avoiding pressure, but by learning to remain centered within it. People naturally recognize this quiet strength. They may not always express it openly, but they notice those who remain respectful without becoming passive, assertive without becoming aggressive, and calm without becoming indifferent. Such individuals create an atmosphere of stability that others instinctively appreciate. Their presence communicates that they value themselves enough to choose thoughtful responses over emotional reactions. Ultimately, the greatest form of personal power is not the ability to control other people, but the ability to govern yourself. When your peace no longer depends on someone else's behavior, your confidence becomes authentic rather than performative. You stop chasing approval because your actions are guided by character instead of validation. In that state of emotional discipline, respect becomes less about demanding recognition and more about consistently living according to values that no circumstance can easily shake.